Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for joining today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, especially over from Prague. So a little bit about yourself. I would love just for the listeners to understand who you are and what Steve is all about.
Well, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I guess I would start back. Probably my journey started entrepreneurially and also on my kind of journey into understanding more about my body, my mind, my soul. Probably in 2012, had kind of I'd say a moderate heartbreak around that time. And I was living with guys who were really exploring their consciousness and sexuality. And I was running a magazine back then, and still, well, it's still available now, the Raw Attraction magazine for men and women about dating, sex, and relationships. And then that spurred me on to create the Heart Initiation Academy a few years later, with some of the world's best experts, and write my own book. So it was kind of spurred around that time, when I was living in England, and I was went on a traveling journey and a exploratory journey of myself and the world. Fortunately, was privileged enough to be able to do that. So I would say my journey started then. Obviously, I had a childhood which was relevant, but in terms of what I'm doing now, it's really the last 11 years that have kind of formulated where I'm at as a 39-year-old now.
Wow. So kind of what spurred you on to start looking into that journey in 2012?
Well, I was 29 at the time. So I was realizing that I could just about start attracting the kind of women in my life. I was single back then, and I was looking for the right woman to come into my life. And so I was doing my own kind of studies, research, journalism. I started a podcast back then as well. So I was doing my own research, and also dating, and wasn't, well, that heartbreak kind of tipped things off. So I not only had the pain of my own trauma, because that was setting off trauma in my own body, mind, and soul, because I hadn't been healed by that age. I was thinking in my mind, why am I not particularly healed yet, at 29 years old? And so I went on a journey to figure out why I wasn't healed from my trauma of my past, and resolve it through various uh, you know, healing modalities, I would call them. And some of them were shamanic, some of them were sexual, tantric related, some were more on the energetic, spiritual level, different meditations and different teachers teaching me things there. So it kind of, yeah, it was the universe pushing me down this path and me following the path. Yeah, that, I think that sums it up a little bit.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.
So obviously you mentioned like this path that you've gone down. Like, was there any particular moment where it kind of clicked for you, or was it sort of as a subtle way of healing, in your words?
Well, I guess when I look back, those many things that were clicking. I did study at university, although it wasn't the hardest degree in the world. It was a media writing degree in Southampton, Solent.
Mhm.
And I always knew before then I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know how that would play out. And it took some sort of, I've graduated, I think, 2008. So it took 4 or so years for me to even go into that career properly as an editor of this magazine and a writer, because I would write as well. So that was something that kind of aligned. I just got an email one day from some business dude in America saying, you can start your own magazine for X amount of money. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to invest this and start my own magazine. And it started from there. And then just meeting people along the way. It first started out as a men's magazine, then switched to men and women. So then I had to change my mentality, because there hadn't been a magazine out there for men and women ever. And I don't even know if there still is, for just having this conversation about dating, love, sex, relationships, both sexes together. You have to really think about that editorially.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I had to do more research on a practical level. I had to do more research. I had to do more podcasts like you're doing now, kind of. And you start to meet new people and start to form different ideas and different ways of thinking and different ways to portray that in your articles, in your education, or in the education system that I'm building, in the book that I've done now. So essentially, you could think of it as almost an investigative journalist research project that just transformed into these different creative things that came out with the magazine and the Heart Initiation Academy and the book, and other things that have come out of it and will come out of it. So certain things aligned along the way that, well, many things did, almost everything did. So when I started the magazine, then the podcast started getting really cool guests, then went to a breathwork workshop in London where I had this energetic experience where my body opened much more, which I wasn't expecting at all. I was you can just imagine me as a normal 28, 29-year-old dude, perhaps not really knowing much about my energetic body or my orgasmic body or anything like that whatsoever. But I was throwing myself into these experiences because I felt like I had to, as a journalist and an editor of the magazine. I thought I had to lead by example. So I had to go to these things and try things out. And yeah, I had an experience there. And the woman running that, she was running, she was co-running a shamanic sexuality retreat in Guatemala. A few weeks later, back where I had been in 2007 on a summer trip, exactly where I'd been before. And I loved that place and I wanted a reason to go back. And then I got a good deal on going there, went there, had some heart orgasm thing go through me when we did the sacred spot work. So I think the men were receiving first, or maybe it was women, I can't remember. But anyway, the men were all receiving at the same time. There's about 10 of us, the sacred spot ritual, and which is, there's a lot of massage involved. There was a lot of shamanic leading. There was a lot of intention involved in that ritual, because it was a major ritual on the Lake Atitlan there, with volcanoes around it. It was just insane. Again, I wasn't expecting too much, but I was paired up and aligned with the right woman, this angel-like being. I won't mention her name, but she was just a good friend to me now, like a soul sister. And I felt so safe with her, and she felt safe with me during the experience. And I think everyone got paired up with the right people, and everything happened as it meant to happen. And then when I was, there was a small amount of penetration with the finger, which I'd never done anything like that before. And my heart lit up like a baked potato. Like everything in my heart just went hot, really hot. And it was like a upside down thermometer. And all of a sudden, I was like in this wolf energy, and I could I just feel the warmth of my heart. So it was orgasmic in one sense. It wasn't like a normal orgasm energy vibration for me, but it was just this warmth of the heart. So it was a heart initiation, which is why I call my academy that. So that happened, and then just more experiences like this continued to happen along the journey. And yeah, so like there's so many clicking points. Back to your question. Yeah.
So if you take a step back and you mention around the heart initiation, do you have words that you can use to describe that? Because I know sometimes the feelings can be challenging to describe, but kind of how did that feel like for you?
An overwhelming experience of God in an embodied somatic way.
Mm-hmm.
So I just knew there was something else going on. And God meaning, when I say the word God these days, I never really used the word God when I was young, or even for the last few years, I've only been using it. But when I mean it, it's the divine, orgasmic, ecstatic vibration of the universe that is love, that is justice, that is peace, that's permeating everything. I don't mean some outside being outside this universe kind of doing things down here. I just mean it's this energy that's within all of us and connecting all of us So it was that embodied experience of that. So it changed my whole body system. So I can't be the same after that. Nobody, and the people who were having similar, I don't think anyone had a kind of a heart warming or fire experience like mine, but there were other insanely profound experiences happening for everyone in that room for that whole entire week. And these kind of heart initiations or shamanic initiations that are done in a intentional and pristine and a clean way are extremely, well, profound for the people that go through them. And there's been a lot of people going through these things in the last 10 years or even more, like a lot longer than that. Shamanic initiations are ancient in their form. Some maybe a bit more corrupted by darker energies, but the ones that I've had and I've experienced have been fine for me, and I've been lucky in that sense, I guess.
So how do you reintegrate into society after going through an experience like that?
Well, I don't go back into society. That's probably my answer, is like,
Right.
you stay where you're supposed to stay intuitively. I've never wanted to take a 9-to-5 job, so I've always worked from home pretty much since I finished university. So that's like 2008 or 7, as I mentioned. I can't remember now. So, and then if you choose not to work in an office where people are not going to be having those experiences, or extremely unlikely, then you don't have to deal with office politics or weirdness, unless that I'm sure some companies or small businesses might be open to the staff going through that. I'm sure there are, but you can't go back the same way. It's a matter of integrating time on your own, time in nature, speaking to people who've had similar experiences, staying connected to the people in that workshop that have had similar experiences for as long as you need to integrate the experience. Then they might kind of disappear and you might not speak to them for a while or again. But once you go through that experience as a group, you do genuinely feel connected to them for quite a while afterwards, and there will be people in that group that you will connect with. So yeah, you can't just throw yourself from one event to another. It doesn't really work like that, I don't think. You've got to be extremely careful with your self-love, self-care rituals each day, and making every day intentional. And I think that's probably my answer. You can't really go from a bank job to shamanic initiation back to a bank job. You could go if it was an open company or you're working on your own. But I do have some compassion for these people who perhaps want these experiences but can't I don't know, risk certain things happening if they do. So perhaps we'll find a way collectively to help these people out.
Mm-hmm. No, I can totally relate to that. I went on an ayahuasca journey last March, and yeah, that's why I think it's important to talk about reintegration, because some people do need to go back into society. That is, they have families to support, they have these kind of opportunities where they do need to generate an income for other people. So I think it's important to understand that could happen, right? The awareness.
Yeah, I think you gotta have some excessive time off after something like ayahuasca or a shamanic retreat. You need an extra at least 2 weeks, probably a month.
I've had 6 months.
Yeah. I have done ayahuasca, and last time I did it was 2015, and there's no way I could have gone back to work. I went on a whole shamanic journey for the next 7 years, clearing shit out of the astral realms just because I went and did ayahuasca. So there's no way I could have gone back to work. But there are other modalities that are not so diving in the deep end, which people can go on, like smaller retreats or yoga, or my friend Dr. Doug Lair is in America, but he's also in Prague, in June, and he's doing cellular resonance therapy, which is
Oh.
teaching people how to find the cause of a trauma in the body, mind, soul, and then directly heal it through his modality. So, and that's very, you know, you need some integration time, but it's more of a shallow dive. You might have some intense, but then you could go back to work the next day. I would take at least a day off and then integrate more. So there are more healing modalities out there that don't require such an intense time period away from perhaps the normal life if you have got kids in a sort of normal job. So yeah, I think that's a better way to look at it. Look at the spectrum of things out there on offer for you, and assess everything, how it's going to work in a practical way in your life, because you can't have it sort of interrupt too much, otherwise it's going to cause too much chaos.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that sounds like a good approach that your friend or whoever has as well with that reintegration. Yeah. So you mentioned around, obviously your intention was to find the ideal woman, in your words, 7 years ago. How did that work for you? Did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened now. We're engaged, getting married in 3 weeks, for 3 weeks and a day. So it was a long journey, really, because in 2015, after I did that ayahuasca, I met my mentor, and I was in a different relationship back then, but it was causing me some pain because, fortunately, she was a great woman who allowed me to be myself, and she would show me the mirror back to me. And that's ultimately what a relationship does. It shows you the mirror of what's going on inside your own being, if you go into it consciously and with intention. And she did show me that, but I was seeing a lot of pain inside me still. But I had a mentor, an elder mentor at that time, this shamanic woman in Colorado, and she was essentially showing me how to heal myself. But it was intense, and it was a lot of working with inner alchemy between the masculine and the feminine within us and our inner child. But that was fraught with difficulty doing that inner work, because we were getting a lot of kind of energetic interference, which I've talked about on my own podcast and on the podcast. But, you know, there's a lot of kind of interference when you're essentially taking your power back and your strength back from places in your, perhaps your own being, or karmic influences and things like this that you needed to heal. And when you start healing, there's other things that don't want your power back all the time. These energies can get in the way, and they were very intense sort of 7-8 years ago. Now they're not so intense. So I think it's much easier for people to do their healing. So that was happening back then. So it caused a lot of challenging situations throughout that period. And then I needed a lot of recovery after that relationship ended in 2016. So I had a few years alone, just sort of recalibrating my whole entire being, because a lot of things had changed during that time. And then, yeah, I set out in 2020, actually was the intention of the year, because I realized I was turning 36 or 37 that year. And I was like, okay, this is the age. I'm ready now. I need to find the one who's going to be with me for life and have children and have family together. And then a few months later, she showed up. We started dating, and then started a whole community together during the whole crazy times of 2020. And so, yeah, it's been a great last few years with her. And I believe everyone out there who's looking for a partner can find that partner with the right intentions, and just going into the world of dating with, you know, the right mindset when it comes to the balance of what you actually want is what you have to be yourself. If you want a responsible, caring, loving partner, then be that partner, unconditionally loving each day, turning up with integrity each day, turning up with the intimacy that you want each day, and the compassion, the communication skills, the listening skills. You have to show up each day, and also with humor, because humor is really important in a relationship, in any relationship. So yeah, it happened. I inevitably knew it would happen, but it took perhaps a little bit longer than I thought. But I think that was due to more existential issues than romantic ones. Perhaps they're all interlinked, really, but it was kind of more of an existential issue for me, and it can be for others on the awakening journey, because it can be challenging to heal yourself and find the right partner at the right time and go through all of that. But I think that people are navigating quite well, the ones who are on that journey. I hope so, anyway.
When you say existential, what do you mean by that? What does that look like for you?
Well, just because I think through the discovery of a partner, a woman, the other, you're constantly having to discover yourself and who you are. So that's an existential journey, because you're constantly having to know who you are as a being, as a, I use the term, your true divine self. You're constantly having to find who that is and peel back the layers of bullshit that you've put on your own being to stop you being that true divine self. And some of those layers, they're fine, and I wouldn't, judge any of those layers of myself, but some of them, were not needed. And my old mentor, she put it in the terms of stepping out of your wounded clothes and putting on your divine clothes. And it is kind of all programming. She used to tell me, you have to go through this deprogramming of what you were not as a kind of caterpillar self, and then rebirthing yourself into this butterfly, more orgasmic self on the body level, more aware self on the higher self and the soul level, more even comedy self. You have to really integrate that humor, as I just mentioned. So there's this integration. So it's all existential. As much as, all those romantic movies want to portray this kind of thin veneer of what love is, it's really not. Hardly any of that. I can't think of any movie that's portrayed the depth of what the existential journey is through a true romance. That maybe I can do a movie one day on that.
I was going to say that would be a great movie.
I think I could do it, and I do like writing scripts, but yeah, a few years out, I think.
There you go. So you mentioned obviously around the orgasm piece, and you've talked about brain orgasms before. What can you explain this further? What is a brain orgasm?
Yeah, I can. So I first heard about this brain orgasm thing, I think it was about 2017, and with a different partner back then. Her friend, who's in America, he said he had tried it with his partner, where they were making love, and then she instinctively, for some reason, started sucking and licking at his forehead in between his eyebrows, like it was a clitoris almost. And he had this long orgasm in his brain, like all of his neurons were on fire and things like this. And he was describing it to me, and he was like, okay, why don't you try it? And I was like, okay, I never heard of it, I'll try it. And then we tried it, and it was insane. It put me into some almost psychedelic orgasmic trance for as long as she was licking. Which is kind of like the same experience as a clitoris, I imagine, where, as long as there's some contact with the point on the skin, then there was so much going on in my brain. So it was again another insane experience. It's hard to train someone to do that, and actually the woman I was with during that time, she went on to be kind of more of a tantric massage individual and training guys to have similar experience, but I don't think she even managed to train a guy to be able to do that. It's I don't know, part luck, part really cleansing your body out, because that's what I've been doing for years before then, like taking zeolite in your smoothies to get rid of heavy metals, cleansing your pineal gland, doing all of that stuff, and working with your sexual energy in a different way. Stop ejaculating all the time. Don't watch porn. Understand the flow to your ejaculation cycle. I'm not saying don't ejaculate for 6 months or three months. Maybe start with a 2 to 3 month goal and then ratchet back, say once a week would be my advice. If there was a rhythm for guys my age anyway, it's probably like once a week or a couple of times a month. And then you start breathing the energy around your body when you're in these orgasmic states with your partner or you're close to orgasm, and you can ask her to tap on the base of your spine and then breathe the energy up the base of your spine. That's what I was doing quite a lot before this kind of brain orgasm happened. So I think my spine was very clear, because you're clearing out energies when you do that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of just also have to believe all of this is possible. If you're listening to me and you're going, sounds mad, but yeah, it kind of does to someone who hasn't heard it before. But even if someone was telling this to me when I was 25 or, before I started this journey, I wouldn't probably believe them. I would probably think they're slightly mad, some sort of tantric freak. But, I was a normal guy before. I'm still somewhat normal, but I think anyone can do it if they put their mind to it. And I think also any part of your body, any part of your cells and skin is potentially orgasmic.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys I was taught by, he specifically said any place of your body that can be tickled as well, can torn, is very sensitive to orgasm. I mean, this is not ticklish for me, but I think it's just that if you can be tickled somewhere, it just helps heighten that area. But I believe anywhere I can be. I was in another tantric massage in 2020, and the therapist was sat behind my head. I think I was on the floor, so just you imagine she sat behind my head. I think just doing some head massage, and then she moved to my eyeball, my left eyeball for some reason. She cupped it, and then I had this freaking insane orgasm through like every cell in my eyeball.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the heck? I mean, she had extremely high level of skills in tantra and massage. She'd done a lot of training and stuff, and that's kind of the reason why I went to her, because I looked at her resume. I don't just go for any random tantric woman on the internet kind of thing. I look at see what training they've had. And yeah, she was obviously highly skilled, but we were chatting afterwards. She was like, most guys can't open up like that because they haven't, one, they probably got fear to do so, or they don't know how their body works. So it was kind of a synchronicity thing where she was obviously highly skilled and I was proficient in knowing my own body. That's why I think for me, tantric massage, women and men who do that work professionally and have all the trainings are actually really important for society, because guys who are not assholes, who actually want to learn more about their body and they want to have a conscious experience, and they're single perhaps, or even if they're a partner and they maybe take their partner to watch them receive a tantric massage or something like that. These people are doing such a service, and they should be respected as so. And just wanted to shout that out for those women and men.
If there's a man or woman or non-binary, whatever, listening that wants to start exploring this sounds like totally alien to them, but they're like, this feels good for me, what's the first step you'd recommend that they take?
With which part specifically?
With heading into like a tantric massage, for example.
Well, if it's a massage, you have to search the website probably on if they're in a local town, like if it's London, Prague, New York, wherever you are in the world, it's probably not going to be done in a smaller town. So you might want you want to go into this with an intention of, okay, I want to experience my body in a new way. And then with that intention, you will write to them and say, okay, I've watched this podcast, or I've seen some information, I've heard some things, and I want to experience my body in a new way, because I believe it's possible for me, and I haven't been taught it, and I just don't know what's going on, but I believe you might be able to help me. Now, even if they haven't got their list of all their trainings on the website, if they respond to that in a respectful way, going, yeah, I can do this, and they get on the phone with you and they say, yeah, I recommend we start with this session, and then maybe come back a month later, and then we integrate it. And there are people out there that do this. You have to go in there with that intention. Once people start going to use, I don't know if sex workers is the right word, but people who work in this industry, and they go in with a different intention, rather than going to strip clubs or prostitutes, or just backdoor weird stuff, then it changes the whole dynamic of the business. We don't have to have the seedy relationship with sexuality as a society. You're going in, and this person may love to be of service in this way to people in society. Perhaps they only do it 2 or 3 days a week, but they love it, and obviously they get pretty well paid for that service, because it's not something everyone can do, and they've done their training, and they've got good customer service, and they deserve to be rewarded in that way. So it's all about our intentions. If we go in with different intentions, then it creates a different business environment. And so, yes, try and find one with some trainings and ask them about the trainings. But if they literally haven't got any trainings, then you can try emailing them and say this is your intention, and see what happens. But I would advise that they have some training, and just it's not just happy ending kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. I know I've had one uni massage, and I was going to have one last year, but I didn't have it because literally same what you were just explaining, like there was no consistency with the commitment of what the other person, the masseuse, was going to do. And I was like, there's no way I feel safe to proceed further. So I think that's great advice around like feeding into the energy as well around that person. Like it's such an intimate time as well. Like I think it's so important. So yeah, thank you for sharing the insight on
Yeah,
that.
I just want to say it's probably more different for women than men, and obviously non-binary and all that kind of thing. But women specifically are going to be looking at a different angle, because they may have some trauma with men. They therefore might want to go to a woman for a massage, which is fine. But if they are looking for a man, you have to look really carefully, and probably be recommended. I would, from a trusted person, that they're actually recommended if it's going to a man, because unfortunately it can't, the sexual energy that men can get turned on so much in these experiences. And if it's okay to be slightly turned on, because it's kind of natural as a human experience, but if they don't know how to start breathing that energy around them, or not projecting that sexual energy on the client, like I think you actually want to have those conversations before you start. Like, what happens if you do get turned on? What are you going to do? Like, not in a judgmental way asking the guy who's doing it, but what would you actually do? Because I would like to know. And being more inquisitive to those types of questions. For men on the other side, it's probably not so difficult, because men generally probably won't mind if the masseuse is slightly projecting onto them, because they don't feel a physical threat from the woman, whereas a man can be physically threatening, as we are biologically different mostly. So yeah, that would be my advice there.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So like where's next for you? You've created so many different amazing creative streams for you. Where do you see yourself heading to?
um I think just expanding things out, really. This is why I'm on your podcast, and I'm trying to get on other people's podcasts. I've put in a good 11 years of foundational work, which I think you kind of have to do for any career. You know, I found, fortunately, some people don't even find the career that they want until later in the life. I found, fortunately, at 29, some people start even earlier than that. But I think when you've done 10 years in a niche and you've stuck to it and you've really put some good things out there, then it's time to push on and for the next 10 years. So I think I've made a good foundation over the last 10, 11 years. And so just pushing on with the brands that I've got, and helping as many people as possible. And yeah, if I probably as well want to write more, so I'll write another book and scripts if they come. There seems to be all this AI stuff coming out now, making it very easy to create things. So could be that many people are writing scripts and making their own movies, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. With more, I think more power is coming to the individual so much, which is I don't find it scary, but some people find it scary. But it means that creations need to be high vibe and in alignment with divine plan. And if they're not, they're going to be thrown to the wayside. But it's going to be interesting times as more people are diving into kind of these kinds of creations. So I'll be exploring those things as well. So there's a lot to explore over the next 10 years. So yeah.
Exciting. And you've mentioned your book a couple of times. Like, is there like a key kind of chapter or something that you feel you could share with the audience today that you think might resonate with them?
Well, they're all kind of key, and it just depends where you're at. So there's 10, it's called My Ecstatic Rebirth, the 10 keys to unleash your power, pleasure, and purpose. And so the first key, I think, is fundamental on a daily basis, is self-love and self-care. And, that has to be paramount, whether you're single or you're in a relationship. And if you don't have that in place, then your energy and your time and your whole being essentially can be commandeered by other forces, whether that be energetic forces or business or corporation or another person, government or whatever. If you want to earn your self-care and self-love and really taking good care of your nutrition, your fitness, your soul, your intentions for the day, and all of those things, it's going to put you off on the wrong foot. It's from there which you build from. Then you can build your sexuality. Then you can build your communication skills. Then you can build your, boundaries are such an important part of that self-love and self-care, because you need to have boundaries so that you're not walked all over all day long, that you have certain morals and certain beliefs that you stick to day in, day out. For example, I will not tolerate lying from anyone around me, otherwise I can't speak to them, unfortunately. So it's just simple boundaries like that. So that's probably number one, really, is doing that. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's great advice. So simple things like boundaries that a lot of people don't think about. And I feel that your word can be overused, but actually not many people give examples. So yeah. Well, one thing I always like to ask everyone before we head off is, what is your favorite pleasure in life? Or do you have a preferred pleasure that you like and open to share?
Well, I think the biggest one is just intimacy itself, and intimacy that can be with anything. So it's almost taking the pleasure out of everything in life. So you can have intimacy with, for example, me and my partner, we drink cacao at home, ceremonial cacao we've got from Guatemala, and you have an intimate ritual with the cacao, a bit like drinking sacred tea or even ayahuasca or something. You don't have to have a psychedelic experience with it, but you have this intimacy with it. And then just intimacy with others, seeing them fully, and allowing yourself to show up and be seen fully. I think these are the deeper pleasures for me in life, especially when you're with another person. It's just bringing yourself fully and allowing yourself to be seen, and then just allowing that circle to keep on going. And that's what I have with my close friends and my partner, is just bringing myself and allowing myself to be seen. And so it's that intimacy. Into, some people have broken it down to into me I see, and others have say into you I see. I think it's both. So there's that. I think that's the greatest pleasure, and that's kind of how you live an ecstatic life, because you're finding this deep connection with everything, whether it's a person, nature, dog, cacao, a sport, whatever it is you love, as long as it's healthy for your being. It's not crack cocaine like Hunter Biden or something like that, but a healthy relationship with reality, and that intimate relationship with reality, with healthy things that help you grow as a more ecstatic and vibrant being, so you can shine your love out to the world. That's the biggest pleasure in life, I think.
I love that. That's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for sharing. So if anyone wants to check out more about you, follow your journey, where can they find you?
Well, for podcast listeners, and I give out my kind of secret domain to people who've listened to the podcast. Is www.steve.gifts. So there's some gifts on there that I'm giving to people who've listened to me speak. There's 4 back issues of my magazine, the Raw Attraction magazine. And there's also some meditations on there and some cool stuff. So just go over to steve.gifts and you'll find those, and you just have to sign up with your email. And yeah, that'll be the best place to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'll put that all in the show notes for everyone to access as well. And yeah, thank you so much for joining today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Steve.
Thanks, Lucy. I really appreciate it. And thanks for what you're doing with your podcast.
Oh, you're welcome.